everyone, Susan here. Okay, on this vlog, I want to talk about fabrics, fibers, labels that are in your garment, and Modal specifically, and that's what's next. Okay guys, things have changed from way back when I was designing in the very beginning of my career till now. Now you get these tags, tons of them, long ones, in your garments. You know, my favorite, of course, is the Calvin Klein underwear. I want to talk about, these different fibers and what's in them, and this whole thing about Modal. What is Modal? Well, let me tell you something. I've been using Modal way back. I think it was on the scenes I was using it when I'm manufacturing in Miami. Back, I would say, even as far back as maybe 2002. Prominently used it like in 2007 on when I was designing, and that just continued and continued. It wasn't that prevalent. It was kind of hard to get, and actually I was getting my Modal from Canada, believe it or not. So shipping it here in the large quantities and having to share some of these orders because they were so large back then was very, very difficult. Now you see Modal everywhere. Modal is in every single thing. I even saw Modals in polyester sheets. Go figure. What is this stuff? What is it exactly? Where is the origin of it? And why are we using it? I have to just sort of go to the beginning of what this is because I really didn't know the origin. So I did a little bit of research, and it goes back as far as 1951. It was actually developed in Japan. I will tell you this though, the history, a little bit of a side note on the history of fabrics and fibers. Your basic cotton, wool, polyester, and then you had this thing called rayon, viscose, and linens and silk linens and combinations. I will say when I was designing, I was doing couture, I would go to Italy because Italy was very cutting edge with using different fabrics and different fibers and synthetic fibers in a really lush way, where the US was basically saying that if it was cashmere and if it wasn't prima cotton, it was useless. Designers, not so. Modal was sort of developed. First I have to talk about what they use in the Modal. I want to kind of differentiate between what Modal is and the fibers that are used in Modal, because Modal has become something beyond just a fiber. It's not really a fiber, it's a process of a fiber, and now we're using them in different types of fibers. It elongates, it makes it silky, it makes it more breathable, all these wonderful things that Modal brings. But I used to always say that I just used the natural fibers way back. It was the cotton, the wools, the linens, right? But I was okay with rayon. And I would say that because it came from a natural source, the original natural source, which is bark, tree bark. But in order to make rayon, there were some chemicals that had to be added. So it's called semi-synthetic. Which means that it has, a natural component to it, but it has also synthetics and chemicals that make it something else. Well, Modal can also be a knit. That's what I used. This is the Modal knit that I used way back. These are some of my samples that I had in these colors as well, bright colors. And it's made to be very silky. Modal is a second generation generated cellulistic fiber and a variation of rayon. Lensing Modal is made from harvested beech tree. Back to when I was using the Modal way back, I did these garments and I doubled these garments, meaning I didn't use a cheap lining. I literally doubled these dresses because I was known for the inside of my garments to being so lush and comfortable. So it was part of my trademark of who I was. But it became very expensive to make these garments, and of course then cheaper knockoffs were made in larger stores, which is another whole story that we'll talk about later. But going back to the Calvin Klein underwear and all these crazy labels and tags, I mean, Well, I think part of the reason is, first of all, it is illegal not to put in the origin of where the garment has been made, the fiber content, and the washing instructions. Those are all required on every garment sold here, and if it's not made here. So because Calvin Klein is worldwide, he has these in like every single language. But let me find the English so I can explain to you what that's all about. 53% cotton, and then it says 35% modal, and then it says 12% elastin, which is the elastic that's in both the fiber of the actual knit of the garment. Why? Why not just do it all in cotton? Why not just do it all in nylon, which is, silky? Why not just do it all in polyester? Why Modal? Why do they use Modal? Well, the properties of Modal is what makes it so special. And so that's why I think of Modal not only as, a way a fiber is made, but almost like a way a type of fabric is made, if that makes sense. So Modal itself is, like I said, originally made from rayon, and it is called a semi-synthetic. It has a cellulose fiber, and it's made a spinning and reconstruction of the cellulose fiber. And then it has some whole chemical breakdown with it, so that's why it's called semi-synthetic. But what's different between just regular rayon and Modal rayon is that the components on how they make this fiber and its elements that it has in the final process. Modal is very silky. It can fool you. You might even think it is silk made differently. It has a longer thread, so the pilling is less. It has more of absorbability. It dyes fast, meaning it absorbs really bright colors, as you can see, very well. And so Modal had a lot of components and a lot of benefits that, some big-time designers want to use because of its properties and its lushness that it has. And now it's become so widespread that it's more readily available. I noticed that Modal can be used in different ways as well. There is a bamboo version of Modal. There's a rayon Modal. I've even seen, like I talked about earlier, a poly Modal. So that's more completely synthetic. It's a form of process that is now then 100% synthetic in that range. And viscose is, I used to say, if you're going to get just very untechnical, if you want to clump it in, you can say viscose is like rayon, right? Viscose is just a little bit slightly different, but it still comes from the same component, which is from the bark of a tree. A different component, but their hand is the same. I used to test me that I could just touch a fabric and tell you what the fiber content was. That was back when there weren't so many different, combinations of things. I could tell you what cotton was. I could tell you what wool was. I could tell you what linen was. And I could tell you sometimes maybe the combination of the both. But once we started to get into the Modal, and once we started to get into microfibers, which is a whole nother thing itself, it fooled even my hand at being able to detect the different fibers. So the reason why Calvin Klein and other companies are using these fibers is because it has more absorbability. It is more breathable. It is a longer fiber. It can dye well. It can dye fast. And in the combinations to other fabrics and fibers, it is really, really lush, and it gives a beautiful hand to the fabric and to the final garment. And that's why, it's used. I even did, and this is dresses, and I'll show you the actual dress in a clip. I lined this dress in Modal just to give it that extra lush that I was looking for, that my clientele was used to in my designing. And another thing is with Modal, and another thing is with these labels, right? All these crazy labels. They tell you in English, hopefully, the washing instructions, and then they also have those different signs of what, you can do, whether you can wash it. The thing about Modal is you cannot dry clean it. Very bad for it. And what's really interesting is Modal was kind of the stepping stone for me to go from putting in every single garment I ever had dry clean only to washable, machine washable or hand washable. So Modal was actually the fiber that let me go crossover from the Couture, old school dry clean only to washable fibers that became stronger and better in generation to generation with these garments. So, I hope that makes sense. And I want to read a quote that Victoria Beckham said, and he says, "I find that even the simplest of dress, if it has the correct seaming and the correct fabric, whatever shape or size you are, it can change the way you hold yourself." Victoria Beckham. I will tell you, when people would put on these luscious dresses with the Modal, people would just feel so good inside, and it just made them feel so rich and so special themselves in a different way. And that's what fashion can do. It can transform you. It can make something simple be extraordinary. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope that this was helpful. And so now you're going to be looking at these labels inside of your garment and trying to see what the difference between just your basic cotton underwear and your Modal cotton underwear. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Please subscribe if you haven't, and put the bell notification so you don't miss videos in the future. I will get back to the lace gown project. That is what's next, I promise you, and I'll see you there. Thank you. Bye-bye.